You're standing beside a 400-ton haul truck, and it will not move. The screen glows red. The engine is fine. The tires are fine. But one line of code has decided this machine is done for the day. I know that screen too well. For 11 years, I sold and serviced these giants for one of the largest Caterpillar dealers in the country, and I signed invoices that still keep me up at night. Here's the truth. I carried out the door with me. The yellow paint did not lose to a cheaper truck. It lost because it turned its most loyal customers into hostages, and the mines finally found the exit. Stay with me, because there is a back door buried in a tool called CAT-ET that almost no owner is ever told about, and by the end I will hand it to you. And if you own yellow iron sitting in your yard right now, this next part was built for you, not just for the buyer shopping his next machine. Let me start with the promise, because I made it 1,000 times with my own mouth. When I walked a mine manager around a brand new Cat truck, I was not selling steel, I was selling sleep. I would stand in front of purchasing men twice my age, men who had run pits since the 1970s, and I would tell them that yellow meant they would never lie awake wondering if their fleet would run tomorrow. Buy the truck, buy the coverage, buy the peace of mind. That was the pitch, and I believed every word of it back then. A Cat 797F ran close to $5 million a copy, and I sold them in packs. When a man writes a check that big, he wants to be told he is safe. So I told him the dealer network was his family. I told him nobody would ever leave him stranded. But here's the first thing I learned that I was never supposed to say out loud. The truck was never where the money was. The truck was the hook. The money was in everything that came after the truck. Parts, filters, diagnostics, software. The service contract that renewed whether the machine ran well or not. I watched the math from the inside for over a decade, and the pattern never changed. We might make a thin margin selling the machine, sometimes almost nothing, because the real river of cash started the day that machine hit the dirt and never stopped for the next 20 years. Every hour that truck rolled, it belonged to the customer. Every hour it sat still, it belonged to us, and a giant haul truck parked in a working pit bled somewhere north of $5,000 an hour in lost production. Some of the big iron ore operations I dealt with put that number closer to $10,000 an hour. Think about that. A machine that cost more to stop than most people's homes are worth, and only one company held the key to start it again. That is the moment the trust starts to curdle. Because a smart operator eventually asks the obvious question, why does starting my own truck require your permission? So let me peel that back, because this is where the real scheme lives. There is a piece of software called CAT Electronic Technician. Everyone in the trade just calls it CAT-ET. It is the laptop program that talks to the truck's brain, reads the fault codes, clears them, and unlocks the parameters that let the machine run right. When that 400-ton truck throws a D-rate and crawls to a stop, the answer to why is sitting inside that software. And for most of my career, the unspoken rule was simple. That software lived on the dealer's laptop, in the dealer's truck, driven by the dealer's technician, billed at the dealer's rate. The customer owned the machine. We owned the language the machine spoke. I want you to really sit with that, because it is the whole game in one sentence. You can own every bolt, every hose, every ton of steel, and still not own the ability to talk to it. It went deeper than reading codes. Certain settings on those engines are locked behind what CAT calls factory passwords. Change an injector, swap a major component, adjust a critical parameter, and the electronic control module demands a password that regenerates and that only the factory system can hand out through the dealer. I sat in the service department and watched grown men, master mechanics with 30 years of grease under their nails, hit that wall. They could physically rebuild the entire engine on a tailgate in the rain. They could not tell the truck the work was done. The password stood between their hands and their own iron. And every time they hit that wall, they had to call us. And every time they called us, the meter started running. Then came the telematics, Product Link, the system that phoned home. On paper, it was a gift, health monitoring, location tracking, keeping the fleet healthy. In practice, it meant the dealer often knew a component was failing before the owner did, and knew exactly which owners were running machines outside of dealer service, and knew precisely how to time the next sales call. The data the customer's machine generated on the customer's dirt flowed uphill to us. I used to think that was just good business. Now I understand it for what it was. We had built a system where the customer paid for the truck, paid for the fuel, paid for the operator, generated all the data, and then had to buy that data and that permission back from us, one service call at a time. But a trap that expensive cannot stay hidden forever, and the mines, unlike a lot of buyers, employ people whose entire job is to hunt down cost per ton. Which brings me to the number that started the exodus. Here is what those mine finance people figured out, and what I watched dawn on them across boardroom tables toward the end of my time inside. The purchase price of a mining truck is a small slice of what that truck costs you over its life. Fuel, tires, parts, and service dwarf the sticker. And when a single company controls the parts and the service and the very software that decides whether the machine runs, that company holds the pen on your single biggest lifetime expense. It was not the $5 million sticker that broke them. It was the 20 years of controlled, captive, non-negotiable spending stapled to it. A genuine Cat part could run double, sometimes more than double, the price of an identical part from an independent supplier. And for years, the software games made using that independent part difficult, sometimes impossible, without a dealer's blessing. The captivity was the product. The truck was just the bait. Therefore, the competition did the one thing we never expected. They did not just build a cheaper truck, they attacked the trap itself. Look east and you can watch it happen. Komatsu, the Japanese giant, has traded the number 1 and number 2 mining spot with Caterpillar for years, and they leaned hard into autonomous haulage while Cat was still defending its old model. Their 830E electric drive trucks and the autonomous fleets running in the Pilbara region of Western Australia moved millions of tons with fewer operators and, critically, with an operating philosophy that treated the customer's data and the customer's uptime as the point, not the leverage. Fleets of driverless Komatsu and Cat trucks now haul iron ore around the clock for the big Australian miners, and once a mine tastes that kind of control, going back feels like slavery. But the real earthquake is coming from China, and this is the part the American trade press keeps soft-pedaling. Chinese manufacturers, names like XCMG, Sany, and a wave of automation startups, did not try to out-Caterpillar. They skipped the whole fight. They went straight to battery electric and autonomous, and they went cheap. In the coal country of Inner Mongolia, mines have deployed fleets of driverless electric haul trucks numbering in the hundreds, then the thousands, running day and night with no cab, no driver, and no legacy of dealer lock-in to escape. An electric autonomous hauler with no diesel engine has no factory password engine parameters to hold hostage, far fewer of the wear parts that fed the old parts empire, and a control system the operator was actually invited to plug into. They did not beat the yellow truck on horsepower, they beat it on freedom. And over in Belarus on the edge of the map sits the loudest symbol of the old world's limits. The Bell AZ 75710 holds the record as the largest dump truck ever built, rated to haul 450 metric tons in a single load, a machine so big it needs 2 engines to move. For decades, the assumption was that only the Western giants could dominate the top of the heavy-hauling world. That assumption is gone. The biggest, the most automated, and the cheapest new iron is increasingly not wearing the color I spent 11 years selling. Now I need to stop and turn directly to you, because I know exactly who is watching this right now with their arms crossed. You already own the machine, maybe not a 400-ton haul truck, maybe a Cat excavator, a dozer, a wheel loader, a skid steer that has paid for itself twice over and that you fully intend to run until the day you die. And you are thinking, this is a fine story about mines in Australia, but I am the guy already locked in. Nobody is coming to save me. I am stuck calling the dealer every time a light comes on. This next part is for you specifically, so lean in, because I am about to tell you the things I watched independent operators do to claw back control while they still owned the same iron they felt trapped inside. First, understand the wall you are actually hitting, because it is smaller than they let you believe. Most of what grounds a machine and forces a dealer call is not a physical failure. It is a communication failure. The machine has thrown a code and you cannot read it, or a component was replaced and the control module needs to be told. That is a software wall, not a steel wall, and software walls have doors. The independent shops and the smart owner-operators I respected most did three things. They got their own diagnostic access instead of renting the dealers every single time. They built a relationship with an independent parts supplier and a rebuild shop before they were desperate, not during a breakdown at 11 at night. And they wrote down on paper every code, every parameter, and every fix so that the knowledge lived in their shop and not only on the dealer's server. The owners who did those three things stopped being hostages. The owners who did not kept paying the ransom, but the single most important thing is the one they count on you never discovering, and it is the thing I promised you at the start. So let me give it to you now, plainly, the way I wish someone had given it to me before I spent a decade helping keep it quiet. That instinct in your gut that says something is wrong has been the engine behind everything I just told you, and it is also what drove me to write it all down. I put the full picture into a book called Fixed or Owned, and if that title does not say it all, the follow-up, Break the Lock, goes even deeper into the exact steps independent owners are using to reclaim their machines. Everything I could not say at the dealer counter, everything the fine print buried, is in those pages. You can find them linked in the description below, and I genuinely believe reading either one will save you more money than most dealer invoices have ever cost you. Now, with that said, let me get back to the most important practical move you can make right now, because knowing the problem is only half the fight. For years, the story sold at the counter, the story I helped sell, was that the diagnostic software and the service information were dealer tools, professional tools, not for you. That framing was the whole con. Because it was never actually true, and the proof is not hidden in some leaked file. It is sitting in plain sight, buried under fine print that we simply never pointed you toward. Caterpillar publishes its own service information system to the public. The repair procedures, the torque specs, the schematics, the troubleshooting trees, the same technical library my technicians use, are available by subscription directly to owners through CAT's own service information platform, and through the parts and service tools you can reach right from the CAT website and the CAT Central app. And CAT Electronic Technician, the very diagnostic program I told you lived only on the dealer's laptop, can be licensed by owners with the communication adapter that connects your laptop to the machine sold on the open market. The knowledge was never sealed. It was priced and buried and made to feel forbidden, so that you would keep believing the only door was the dealer's door. This did not stay a secret because it was truly locked away. It stayed a secret because a whole industry had every reason not to mention it, and because the fine print was written to be skipped. But it survived because independent mechanics and stubborn owners kept it alive in forums and group chats and shop conversations, passing the knowledge hand to hand the way real trades always have. The federal government itself put the whole racket on the record. The Federal Trade Commission, in its report to Congress in 2021 titled Nixing the Fix, laid out in black and white how manufacturers use software locks, restricted diagnostic tools, and controlled parts to choke off independent repair, and found scant evidence that any of it was justified by safety. That is not a farmer venting on a forum. That is the trade regulator of the United States naming the machine. So here is your move this week, and it costs you almost nothing but an evening. Do not wait for the next breakdown to learn your options. Go find the exact model and serial number of every piece of cat iron you own. Then price a subscription to the service information for those machines, and price the diagnostic software and adapter for your model. You may decide it is worth it. You may decide it is not. But the instant you know that you can buy the same eyes and the same language the dealer uses, the fear breaks. The screen stops being a locked door and becomes a phone book. That is the whole game. They do not fear you fixing the machine. They fear you knowing you were always allowed to. And once that fear breaks for one owner, it breaks for the whole market. That is precisely what happened at the top of the food chain. The giant minds, the ones with finance teams smart enough to read the fine print I just read to you, quietly stopped accepting that the only door was the dealer's door. They demanded open access to their own machine data. They demanded interoperable autonomous systems so no single supplier could hold their whole fleet hostage, and the industry's own standards bodies started writing those open specifications down. They started splitting fleets between Yellow and Komatsu and the new Chinese electric trucks on purpose, so that no one company could ever again write the pen on 20 years of their spending. They did exactly what you can do on a smaller scale. They took the language back. And the moment they did, the dominance I spent 11 years defending started to crumble, not because the yellow truck got worse, but because the customers stopped being afraid. I left because I could not keep standing in a customer's yard, looking a hard-working man in the eye and selling him peace of mind while knowing the real product was his dependence. I had watched too many good operators, men who understood their machines better than any technician I ever employed, stand helpless beside a perfectly healthy truck because a line of code and a password they were not allowed to have said no. I had signed too many invoices where the labor to plug in a laptop and type a password cost more than a working man made in a week. The steel was honest. The scheme wrapped around the steel was not. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Here is what I want you to walk away with tonight. You did not buy a subscription, you bought a machine. The ownership is real, and the control you thought you lost was never actually theirs to take. It was borrowed from you through fine print and fear, and you are allowed to take it back. You are the kind of person who fixes what he owns. You always have been. You are not the man who rents his own iron from the people who sold it to him, and you never were. That instinct in your gut that says this is not right, that a machine you paid for in full should answer to you, that instinct is correct, and it is the most valuable tool in your shop. So let me ask you something, and I want a real answer down in the comments because I read them. What is the worst dealer invoice you have ever been handed for a repair you know in your heart you could have done yourself? And which machine was it on? Tell me the brand, the model, and the number that made your stomach drop. Name it out loud. I want the next owner scrolling past to see he is not alone and not crazy, because every number you share is one more crack in the wall they built. And if you are done being told you need permission to touch what you own, then you already belong here, with the rest of us taking our iron back one machine at a time. Subscribe and stand with the owners who refuse to rent what they bought. Because next I'm going to show you the exact independent parts networks that undercut dealer prices by half on the most common wear items, the suppliers the counter will never mention, and how to build your own escape before the next breakdown ever finds you. The dealers had their turn writing the terms. Now it is ours. This video was just the overview. Inside the circle, I pick up right where I stopped and walk you through the Cat ET back door, step by step. And in there, you can ask me your own question. A real person, me, answers you myself. No bot. You won't be doing it alone. Folks like you are already inside. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen, and you can cancel any time. If you enjoyed learning about this, there's plenty more like it waiting for you right here. Take a moment to subscribe and keep exploring. I'll see you in the next one.